Hi everybody, this is Laura and Arnie with Krazy, Kool, CAKES.
Thanks for joining us today.
We're so excited to be coming to you with the third video in our Cake Biz series, and today we're going to be answering a lot of your questions that have to do with cake pricing, and we're going to cover what we personally feel as cake artists is the most important thing we need to know when it comes to charging for our cakes. So we're going to go through some of your comments, and of course we'll be giving everybody shout outs. We want to thank everyone for their questions. This first one is from Alicia Sanchez.
Hi Alicia.
And she says, hello Laura and Arnie, my problem is pricing. I have no idea what things to consider in order to get a fair income for my job. Thank you guys. Alicia, this is an excellent question. When it comes to knowing how to charge for your work, guys, you have to take into consideration every single thing that's involved in creating the cakes. What I want to do is just read another comment here, and then we'll touch on, or attempt to start answering the questions here. This next one is from Erica Lee.
Hi Erica.
So Erica asks, how much profit should a cake artist make after expenses? Okay, this is an excellent question, and this is something that I cover a lot in our cake pricing webinar. And for those of you that don't know, we are currently registering for our upcoming webinar that's going to be happening Sunday, April 30th. There's still a few spots available for
right
those
around
of
the corner.
Yeah, for those of you that are interested in learning how to charge for your specific cakes. So these two comments for me have a lot in common. To answer Erica's question, how much profit after expenses? I always tell my participants that the amount of money that you spend on ingredients, tools, materials, which are your out-of-pocket expenses, those things really shouldn't even make a dent or even begin to make a dent in your profit. If you are charging correctly for your cakes, the cost of the ingredients, materials, tools, supplies really shouldn't be a factor or any type of a dilemma when it comes to charging for your cakes. When I read comments or hear, cake artists talking about that in order to charge for a cake, you have to add up the cost of your ingredients, you have to figure out exactly, how much a certain amount of eggs for the recipe cost and how many cups of flour, the total cost of those cups of flour.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Ain't nobody got time for that. And not just that, guys, but again, those things really should not even begin to make a dent in your profit, which should be very, very significant, and we'll get into that in a little bit.
That's good.
Alicia wants to know, what types of things should I consider in order to make a fair income on her cakes? In other words, what types of things do I have to take into consideration to make sure that I'm paying myself what my time is worth?
Right.
Okay? And so this is what we feel is the most important thing when it comes to charging for your work.
If you had to name one thing,
if I had to name one thing, this is it. I mean, this is just huge, huge, huge for us, and it did take us quite a few years to figure it out. And this is why we know, guys, that our cake pricing techniques work. They are fail proof. Okay, so for everybody that needs to know or that wants to know, step number one, the most important thing in knowing how to charge for your cakes is knowing what 1 hour of your time is worth. What do I mean by that? I mean, you have to actually arrive to a dollar amount for what you feel 1 hour of your time is worth. If you don't know what 1 hour of your time is worth, mark my words, guys, you'll never ever know how to charge for your cakes. The things to consider are the things that take up your time. Okay, everybody knows that whenever we felt shortchanged, it's all because the amount of hours that we spent creating the cake didn't quite balance with the amount of money that we made, or I should say the amount of money that we thought we made. Remember, just because you charge a certain dollar amount for a cake, that does not at all mean that that's what you made. Okay, so how do we find out exactly what we made? What type of things, like Alicia asked, do we need to take into consideration? This is where I'd like to mention my Cake Artist Guide. This Cake Artist Guide is specifically made to show you the things that you need to take into consideration when charging for a cake.
Very well put together.
Yeah, and if I do say so myself. Okay, so the Cake Artist Guide, for those of you that don't know, it's a video tutorial that also comes with a PDF. The PDF includes a cake artist self-pay discovery form, which I have here, and we're going to go through just a few things so that you can see how this truly is helpful. In the video, I guide you step by step, and I actually use one of our own cakes as an example so you guys can see for yourself the types of things that you need to take into consideration. So just to give you a few examples of the types of things that are on this, what I call the cake artist self-pay discovery form, because once you filled out this form, you will actually discover what you have truly been paying yourself in the past for your cakes. If you've never done this, guys, I'm telling you right now, this is a huge eye-opener. Every single participant in my webinar that has done this, a lot of them were just
flabbergasted?
Flabbergasted is a word. Left in shock when you truly find out what you've been making. You know, some of them...
But you have to get to a bottom and say like, wow, I can't believe it. Now, let's move forward.
Yeah, I mean, we can never move forward. We can never improve as cake artists. We can never improve as cake business owners if we don't first face reality. You know, how are you going to start making a profit, a true significant profit that will actually start improving your life?
That's right.
If you don't first come to the realization of what it is that we've been doing in the past, right?
That's right.
So in this cake artist self-pay discovery form, guys, within the guide, I ask you several questions that have to do with one of your cakes. So you're going to choose one of your cakes that you've actually charged for, and we're going to be asking you bits of information that have to do with that cake, and then that way you can see what you've actually paid yourself for that cake. So I'll ask you things like, you know, how many hours invested communicating with the client? How long did it take you to design the cake? How long did it take you to bake? How long did it take you going to the store to, you know, shopping, right? Or sending you, you know, shopping for ingredients and things like that, because he's my little grocery shopper. Everything, guys, from beginning to end. I ask you many specific questions about your cakes, and you will actually input the amount of time that it took you. Of course, I ask you things, you know, like how much you charge total for the cake, how much your out-of-pocket expenses were. Once we figure out all of these things together, you will see what you ended up paying yourself per hour. In the guide, I actually ask you to investigate what the minimum wage is in your state, or if you live outside of the United States, what the minimum wage is in your area. And if you are near the minimum wage, anywhere near the minimum wage, whether it's below or above, you are definitely not charging enough for your work, because we as professional cake artists, and I don't care what level you're at, if you're a cake artist,
that's right,
you're a cake artist, yeah. You might have only been doing it for 6 months, you might have been doing it for 6 years or 16 years. No matter where you are in your journey of being a cake business owner, you should not be anywhere near the minimum wage. So we talked about being flabbergasted a little while ago. A lot of our cake pricing webinar participants, after filling out this information in the self-pay discovery form, a lot of them were in the red. That means that they ended up being negative. They ended up paying themselves a negative amount of money per hour.
They paid the client.
Exactly. That's what I was about to say. So in essence, they ended up paying the client to allow them to make the cake for them.
It's just so ridiculous.
So, you know, some realized they had only paid themselves a few cents per hour, a couple of bucks per hour, minimum wage, or just a little above minimum wage.
Not to mention time away from your family.
Yeah, and you know, the majority of us run our businesses out of our homes. You know, and I've heard a lot of cake artists tell me, well, I don't feel like I can charge that much because I don't have any overhead. Or, you know, I don't have an actual cake boutique on one of the most, you know,
popular streets
on, you know, the west side of town or whatever. None of that matters, guys. Okay, what matters is your talent, the quality of your work. Okay, don't let any of that.
My city's very poor.
All of those things, guys, are just
non-factors
and excuses. You know, we try to brainwash ourselves into finding reasons as to why we shouldn't be charging that much for our work. How much should you be charging for your work? Well, one of the factors, because it's not all, okay? But one of the most important things, like we said, is knowing what 1 hour of your time is worth. Okay, so let's get down to business. How do we find out what 1 hour of our time is worth? After the cake artist has filled out the self-pay discovery form, and
And has discovered,
you know, what they ended up paying themselves per hour. And then I'll use you as an example. Okay, so let's say that you're a cake artist.
But I am.
Well, yeah, you're right. You are. Okay, let's say you're not Arnie Wong.
Okay.
And you're a different cake artist. And let's just say that after he filled out the self-pay discovery form, he realized that he only ended up paying himself $2.98 per hour. Right, so you thought you had charged a few $100 for the cake, but
I thought I did pretty well.
You thought you did pretty well, right? You went with your gut instinct, that first number that popped into your head,
right.
Or you took the cost.
I thought that was fair.
Yeah, you took the cost of the ingredients and you tripled it. You know, like one subscriber said they did. And so after your out-of-pocket expenses and after you figured out all of the time invested, right, from beginning to end, after all is said and done, at the end of the day.
At the end of the day.
Right, like
J-Lo says.
J-Lo says, at the end of the day.
Like everybody says.
You realized you only paid yourself $2.98 per hour.
Wow.
That's a hard realization to come to. Those of you that have purchased a Cake Artist Guide and have already done it can testify to this. You know, guys, it takes courage. It takes courage to really look at ourselves and look at what we've been doing. But remember, guys, let's not be afraid of this, okay? This is a good thing.
This is a step forward.
It's a step forward. It's a necessary thing in order to know how to charge for our work. I mean, like I've said before, this is a life changer. So for those of you that are truly interested in learning how to charge correctly for your work, please sign up for our next webinar. Okay, the next one is coming up April 30th, Sunday.
Sign up now.
Again, like I said, even if you don't register for the webinar, definitely you want to obtain your Cake Artist Guide. This will really open up your eyes and will start to show you all the things like Alicia and Erica have asked, all the things that you need to take into consideration. You know, I don't know how to charge for my work. Okay, what things do I need to take into consideration?
There's your first step.
And all of those things that you need to take into consideration take time. That's what it's all about. What does it take to create a beautiful custom cake? Time. What does it take to bake and to ice and to cover and fondant, to sculpt cake decorations?
Let me guess.
Time. So again, if you don't know what 1 hour of your time is worth, you will never, ever know how to charge for your work. So going back to the example. So after doing the self-pay discovery form,
$2.98 an hour.
$2.98 per hour.
You're going to ask me, am I happy with that?
Okay, so
no.
Yeah, we already know the answer to that.
Right, everybody does.
So let's find out what he feels 1 hour of his time is worth, okay?
Okay.
So let's say if I were to ask you to make this cake all over again, from beginning to end, and I asked you to come to Krazy Kool Cakes and I'm gonna pay you. Okay. You're gonna work for me and I'm gonna pay you to recreate this entire cake.
You're really gonna pay me.
Right, and remember this is a cake that you choose, one of your own cakes that you actually charged a client for.
And pick the one that you think you charge the highest for.
Yeah, pick the one that you think you did a really good job charging for, okay? And you know, we do have some nice surprises now and again where people were pretty close.
Yeah.
You know, so a lot of you are on the right track, but from all of the comments that we've read, many of us need a lot of help learning how to charge for our work.
And that's what we're here for.
Okay, so I'm gonna pay you per hour to come to my studio to make that entire cake all over again from beginning to end. You don't have to buy a single thing. I have everything here. I have all the tools, all the materials, all the supplies, all of the ingredients. And so what I'm going to ask you is, when all is said and done,
at the end of the day,
like J-Lo says,
yes,
when you leave here, what will make you feel good about yourself? What will make you feel satisfied? In other words, obviously, I'm insulting you by offering you $2.98 per hour, which is basically what you paid yourself.
Even if you had everything.
Right, which is what you, and that's even if everything was already here.
Right.
But I'm insulting you by offering you $2.98 per hour.
So you're telling me I insulted myself?
Pretty much. Remember, guys, we as cake artists, we're the ones that set the prices. When we come up with a quote, we are deciding what we want to make. We are deciding what we want to pay ourselves. You want me to pay you a certain dollar amount per hour, and you need to walk out of here feeling good about what I've paid you. So that's when the webinar participant or the cake artist, many of you that have done the guide or are going to do the guide, You have to actually say, okay, I feel that I should be paid this much per hour. Now, if you even get a tiny little inkling in your mind that maybe you should be paying yourself a little bit more, but for some reason you just don't dare say that amount, why not?
Why not you?
Why not scoot it up a little bit more? Once again, guys, we are cake artists. We are artists. Not just anybody can do this. Remember, when clients come to you, it's because you know how to do it. They don't know how to do it. Therefore, you need to be paid for your services. Yes, it's fun. Yes, you know, we love what we do.
We do.
I mean, we have so much fun in here, guys. We're like two little kids in here all the time. But still, just because we enjoy baking, we love making cakes, we like making cute little figurines, that does not at all mean that we're going to donate or give away our work or our time. We still need to be paid for our time. In the webinar, the cake artist actually has to decide on a dollar amount. And what I say to them is, okay, from this day forward, you have to make sure that you are paying yourself at least this amount per hour. If not, it's not at all worth you taking the order. If you're not paying yourself at least this much per hour, you are undercharging yourself, you are giving away your work, and as much fun as you might be having, once you deliver that cake, you're gonna regret doing it. And you're gonna feel like you severely shortchanged yourself.
And that's usually when it happens.
That's usually when it happens. And so, how do we avoid this? Find out what 1 hour of your time is worth. So what we recommend you guys do is purchase your cake artist guide and actually do it. I know some of you have actually purchased it, but you haven't done it yet, okay? Let's not let another month go by or another 2 months go by of taking cake orders and still not knowing how to charge for our work. Choose one of your cakes that you actually charged for and go through the guide. It just takes a few minutes when I do it with you, okay? Get your calculator, get something to write with. You're gonna fill out the form, and at the very end, you're gonna realize what you paid yourself.
Bring your Kleenex.
Okay?
Because they don't know.
It's very, very important to get to this number. To get to this number that you're not gonna be happy with. You have to get to this number in order to get to the right number, to get to the right dollar amount that you feel 1 hour of your time is worth. Perfectly fine to take previous jobs into consideration.
That's good.
Previous careers. Some of you have part-time jobs right now. Some of you have a cake business and you still have a full-time job. Some of you, I've spoken with cake artists that have more than one job, and then they're working on their cake business in the afternoons, evenings, and nights.
Oof.
So we all know what it feels like to have had a career or to have a job, and we know for a fact that we were not being paid what we were truly worth.
I wasn't getting paid $2.98,
Okay.
that's for sure.
Whether it be salary basis or an hourly basis. You know, some of you might be in a job right now where you're pretty okay. You know, you're happy with what you're making, but you know that you're worth a little bit more. Some of you are at a job right now or have had a job in the past where they were not at all paying you for the amount of work that you were doing. And some of you are in a career or a job where you do feel that you are being paid for your time. So use those experiences, use that knowledge to help you determine what you feel 1 hour of your time is worth. So hopefully this answers your question, Alicia, where you asked what type of things do I need to consider in order to make a fair income.
It's all on the guide.
Right. Now, fair to me means that I was paid, that I paid myself correctly.
Exactly what I want to get paid.
Exactly what I want to make, what I want to get paid for the amount of work that I am doing. If you want to really know what types of things, and I mean everything that you need to consider.
Very specific.
When it comes to the amount of time that you're putting into a cake, go ahead and go through the Cake Artist Guide, okay? And again, we'll go into more detail here in a little bit and in future videos. And again, guys, knowing what 1 hour of your time is worth is just part of, but the most important part of knowing how to charge for your work. Yes, you know, we will discuss per serving, and I guess this is a good time to mention, okay? The other important factor to coming up with a specific quote for a cake is, first of all, knowing the minimum number of servings that the cake has to provide, and then you all need to come up with a dollar amount per serving according to the intricacy of the design. This is something that we really get specific on in the cake pricing webinar.
Right.
And you know, I love the cake pricing webinar because it's one-on-one with each webinar participant. I look at the type of work that you are creating. We figure out what 1 hour of your time is worth, and then we actually go as far as figuring out what we need to be charging per serving according to the intricacy of the design. You don't charge the same per serving for a buttercream cake, you know, something with just polka dots or rosettes, as you would a 3D hand-carved cake in the shape of a dog.
Right.
Completely different species, completely different animal, okay? So of course we'll get into that, but if you're interested in learning how you should be charging for your specific work, again guys, the invitation is there to join the cake pricing webinar.
That's all we can say.
That's all we can say. So to answer Erica's question, she said, how much should a cake artist profit from a cake after expenses? And the answer is, after all of the expenses, what is left over, which should be a very big chunk, should cover every single hour that you put into creating that cake. Remember, at this point, you've already decided what you feel 1 hour of your time is worth. Remember, if we're not at least making what we feel 1 hour of our time is worth, we undercharged. Okay, we did not come up with a correct quote, and we did not pay ourselves for what we feel 1 hour of our time is worth. And I love this following comment from Tessa Moore.
Hi, Tessa.
She actually hit the nail on the head, and it's pretty much what I just said. She says, your tip on pricing our cakes is great. Your advice is what we know. In other words, what we all as cake artists know, but we're afraid to own it or admit it, she says.
There's that fear again.
So, again, deep down we all know, right? We know. I mean, come on.
You know.
I mean,
you know.
We know that we're not charging correctly for our work. But again, it's a difficult thing, and trust me, I've been there. You've never been there because you just, you know, went along with whatever I did. But
I just walked into it.
But I knew that I was not charging correctly for my work.
You know?
Yeah, and you know, like she said, it's hard to admit it. It's hard to look in the mirror. I mean, that's basically what you're doing, especially when doing this cake artist guide. It takes courage to look in the mirror and see, you know, what's wrong. And again, it's never going to get fixed until we admit that there's something not right, and then you have the courage to fix it. I mean,
Michael Jackson had it right. Start with the man in the mirror.
So then Tessa says, we know what it costs us to make our cakes. Remember, we as cake artists, we know. The client doesn't know what's involved. We as cake artists know what it costs to make our cakes and how much we need to charge to make a profit. And then, look at what she says. The question we need to answer is, how much do we want to earn at the end of it all? And I love that, Tessa. Thank you so much. I mean, that is so insightful, and that is the question. The question we need to answer is, how much do we want to earn at the end of it all? So remember, like I said a little while ago, guys, just because you come up with a dollar amount or a quote for a cake, that does not mean that that's what you're making. Now, let's just say you charge $350 for a cake and you are left with $250, and you might say, well, that's pretty good, $250. But wait a minute.
Hold on.
How many hours did you spend on that cake? Did you spend 24 hours, 48 hours? Maybe your profit was $250, but how much did you end up paying yourself per hour?
And you guys start dividing.
Yeah, and so if you realize, guys, that you ended up paying yourself less than minimum wage, or you ended up in the negative, then you did not really and truly make a profit. And so a question a little while ago was, how much profit should a cake artist make after expenses? The profit should be huge. Like I said in the beginning, the cost of your tools, materials, ingredients shouldn't even make a dent in your profit. Which is why when I read comments or hear cake artists, you know, discussing that you need to take into consideration the cost of the ingredients, or figure out what the cost of the ingredients are in order to make a cake before you provide a quote, that to me is just heartbreaking.
Yeah. Because
a lot of people have that misconception. A lot of cake artists have that misconception that the cost of the ingredients plays a factor.
Like that's where it's at.
That's not at all where it's at.
No.
If you think about it, guys, cake is you know, what do a lot of clients say? But it's just cake.
Flour and eggs.
It's just flour and eggs and icing. And you know what? they're right. The cake is just flour, eggs, icing, you know, extract. And yes, those things are absolutely necessary to create the cake. But when it comes to providing a quote for the cake, guys, those things that are gonna be eaten and swallowed and done away with, you know, in a few hours after the event. Temporary things. Those are not at all the things that you need to be charging for or taking into consideration when providing a quote. Think of all of the hours that you spend baking, icing, making the icing the cake, decorating, covering in fondant, the hours and hours and hours that you sit at your table hand sculpting decorations. That's where it's at. So now you see why I said at the very beginning of the video, the number one thing that we need to know in order to know how to charge correctly for our work is what is 1 hour of our time worth. Who cares about the cost of the eggs and the flour and the extract and the cake dummy and the cake boards and the boba straws and the dowels and the ribbon and the presentation board? Yes, all of those things cost money, but do not take those things into consideration and be multiplying them by 3 or by 4 or by 5 to try to figure out what you should be paying yourself for creating the cake. Again, guys, remember the whole purpose of these videos are to help you, the cake artist, okay, learn from our mistakes, learn from our experience, from everything that we've learned in the previous years. And again, we know how to charge for cakes. Trust me, we know how to charge for cakes. I mean, after all of the mistakes that we've made, we know our cake pricing techniques are fail-proof, okay?
We're not going back again.
Right, so that's why, guys, it all comes down to respecting your own time, knowing the value of your work, respecting your artistry.
So I think it just all comes down to respect. Hit it.
R-E-S-P-C-T, find out what it means to me. R-E-S-P-C-T.
Take care, TCB. I'm all out of key.
Yeah, you look like the kind of Ay, silliness. Remember, guys, the life of a cake artist and the life of a cake business owner, it's all a process. We learn from mistakes, okay? You cannot expect to know everything on day one. I mean, we're already years into it and we're still learning. Every day is a learning process. You can never, as a cake artist, say, I've arrived.
Right.
No, you're never going to arrive. You are forever a student. You will always learn ways to make your cake business better. In order to get on the road to success, and when I say success, I mean knowing how to run a stress-free, anxiety-free, and profitable business is by knowing how to charge for your work. Step number 1, the most important thing to knowing how to charge for our work, for knowing how to provide exact quotes for our cakes, is to know what 1 hour of our time is worth. The thing that has to be paired up with that is knowing what we are going to charge per serving according to design. So that's probably going to be what the next video is going to be on.
Okay.
So it's those two things added together, okay? What is my time worth? What is 1 hour of my time worth? And what do I charge per serving according to design? So that right there should give you an indication that you don't charge per serving the same for all designs.
That's right.
For all types of cakes, not at all, okay? Both equally important, but step number 1, knowing what 1 hour of your time is worth, okay? That is the most important thing. So once we get these two things wrapped up, many of you are gonna have all of your questions answered as far as how to charge for cakes. But once again, guys, the absolute best thing that you could do for yourself as a cake artist and for your business, if you have been struggling with knowing how to charge, is to sign up for our cake pricing webinar. I love these webinars because it's one-on-one help with you, the cake artist. We look at your work, at your cakes, and we figure out what you've been charging, and I actually help you determine what you should be charging per serving according to the type of design that you're doing on your cakes. Okay, so this is very helpful. All of the participants that I've had in the past say that this is a life changer.
I wish we could share the success stories, but there's so many.
Yeah, and go ahead and read through the comments, because many of the participants that have been in the webinar,
they highly recommend it. Yeah.
They've actually commented under the videos, and they highly recommend the webinar for any of you that are struggling with how to charge for your cakes. It's really awesome. I mean, if you're looking for something to catapult you and your business to the next level, this is it. And what I like to say, this is a real help. This is not some computer software where you add in a bunch of numbers. This is not some little, you know, program that determines this and determines that. No, this is real help for you, the cake artist, where you are at. Okay, and so again, we can't say it enough, guys. We love helping other cake artists. We like seeing you guys succeed. We love hearing success stories. We love hearing that things are changing, things are getting better.
No matter where you live. Things
are improving. And again, guys, these techniques apply to everyone. Like he just said, it doesn't matter where in the world you are. You can be in Timbuktu or in Timbuktu. It's gonna work perfectly for everybody. And make sure that you check out all of the links underneath the video. You can find the link to the Cake Artist Guide. You can also find the link to the cake pricing webinar if you want to register or get more information. If you want some helpful tips and advice for your cake business, go ahead and check out our Krazy Kool caking tips. You'll find the link to that also underneath the video. Please, any questions that you have in reference to the business of cakes, anything at all, go ahead and post all of your comments and questions below. And as you can see, I answer every single comment. I answer everyone. I eventually get to everybody. Alright guys, so we just want to let you know how much we love you. We're here for you, and we really hope that these videos are helping you, the cake artist.
And thanks for joining us once again.
God bless you all. Take care. Bye-bye.